And is that what eventually led you to decide that you would change career, in the sense of move from being a GP into addiction medicine and then setting up Leap? What was your thinking at that stage? And how long was it before you made that decision after you left the rehab, David?
Too soon, too early, I think. Probably in a way that I'd advise other people to slow down a little bit.
Okay.
But there were circumstances around that. One thing I got, because of the sudden, and it was sudden and profound change in the quality of my life and the gratitude I felt for having another shot at life. It's really hard for me to put into words how profound that turnaround was. I mean, it's without doubt, it's been the most, I'm just going to go back to using the word profound again, experience of my life, going from absolutely miserable existence and pretty much hating myself and my behavior and not able to relate to the people that I loved, and shut down. And I wouldn't have cared if I'd gone to sleep and not woken up. I just did not care anymore. Going from that to feeling enthusiastic, got my spirit back, my enthusiasm for things. Things fired me up and got me interested and excited. It was so long since I'd looked forward to anything, and then all of a sudden I was looking forward to everything. So I suppose it's probably a little bit of elevated mood, pink cloud stuff going on because of the suddenness and the release. But there's also the reasons that I went on to do something different are quite complicated. There was enthusiasm and the kind of gratitude. There was also a sense of needing to atone or make amends for my past behavior. I wasn't a good partner, both in my personal relationship and in my relationship with my GP partners. I wasn't a good doctor. I wasn't a good son. I wasn't a good brother. For such a long time, I was deficient. I was missing the mark in these areas, and so there's definitely something of living life differently in order to make some kind of amends. And I still think that's still a little bit tied to the shame. I think that's I think I've largely overcome that, but I think there's still enough in there that keeps me on my toes a little bit to try to do the right thing. So that's part of it. And the other thing was just there's the enthusiasm, there's the need to try and make amends, and then the third thing was I wanted other people to have the same kind of experience I'd had. I mean, treatment works well for lots of people, lots of different ways to recovery, lots of different things people want. But my experience was I didn't get the things that made the most difference the first time round. I had a very, what we'd probably call now a harm reduction approach, which got me so far, but not far enough. And then I was introduced to other things that made a huge and profound difference. So I thought, well, this needs to be more, people need to be more aware of these choices, what the options are, because they weren't. I wasn't, and other people I knew wouldn't be. So rather than coming in saying everyone needs to go down this path to recovery, it's more like saying everybody needs informed choice. And if not all the options are on the table, then that's not okay. So part of me is thinking I can maybe do something about this. And the other thing that was
also, sorry, David, is there also the fact that you had something that a lot of other people wouldn't have, because obviously there's only a limited number of places in rehab, and you were a professional and you got there within 3 days, and some poor person would be much more difficult to get that sort of place. Was there that in your mind as well?
That's exactly what I was just about to go on to say. Exactly.
Oh, sorry, David.
That's fine. No, you're ahead of me, which is fine. It's. I went back to general practice, and I was seeing patients in practice who were in the same boat that I'd been in, different backgrounds, sometimes different stories, but same kind of issues. And I found myself reaching for the prescription pad, or referring to services which would then reach for the prescription pad, and not able to refer them. There was no history in the area I was working in referring anyone to residential rehab. There was no budget for it. There was no interest in it. There were no pathways to it. I couldn't offer people the same treatment I'd been offered as a middle-class doctor. And that is really uncomfortable, because there's lots of people come to see their GP with alcohol or other drug problems. And that's when I thought I need to do something about this. So the germ of the idea was saying, well, first of all, I need to teach myself properly about addiction and recovery. And I went back to university and did a master's degree and then in alcohol and drug studies. And then I thought I need to then work in a rehab setting to understand the medical aspects of rehab and, you know, how to do it safely and what we need to consider when it comes to detox and mental health and physical health care and so on. And I did that. I got a job in a rehab and was there for 9 months and learned a lot about how to, you know, how medicine worked in a rehab setting. And then I started to work in communities settings and community clinics, mostly ironically, but which I'm fine with, which was harm reduction interventions, medication assisted treatments, you know, helping people often in really difficult situations stabilize, try to keep them safe, get their blood-borne viruses checked, get them titrated onto opiate replacement if opiates were the problem. Connecting them up to support systems as best I could. And that was really good grounding. But again, working in those community clinics, we had very limited access to residential rehab, and it wasn't an established thing to do. It was, you know, it was a really unusual thing to suggest, although we did get some people to rehab. And then coming up with this concept of how can we offer quality residential rehab as part of an integrated system of care, so joined up to other treatments rather than instead of other treatments, and make it free at the point of delivery, so that, you know, in the same way, if you developed diabetes and went for help, you'd get all your diabetic treatment to you free at the point of delivery. It's paid for in the background, but and be treated in the same way as a diabetic or somebody who needed an operation would be treated, you know, with respect and getting the best quality treatment that was available. So I started to write this down as a concept, as an idea, and then the interesting thing, you'll be interested in this, David, was I thought, well, better find out what's the evidence base for rehabs? What's the evidence base actually for treatments? What are the treatment outcomes from the services that we're pouring millions of pounds into in Scotland? Couldn't find any. Nobody was publishing outcomes. Nobody. Not, you know. So we're putting all this money into all these services, and we had some research on the background to it, but we didn't actually know how we were doing on the ground generally. So that was a bit of a surprise. I suppose I was a bit naive, thinking, well, if we do manage to establish something, we need to monitor it carefully and find out whether it works or it doesn't work. Yes. You know, because it's expensive to run new services.